Did you know that 87% of people who procrastinate actually have more active brains than those who don't? And not only that, but they consume 23% more mental energy when facing a pending task. What I'm about to tell you is going to completely change how you see your procrastination, because it turns out your brain isn't being lazy. It's trying to save your life. Using a 300,000-year-old survival system. Today, we're going to untangle one of the most frustrating mysteries of the human mind. And by the end, you'll understand why your brain does this, and more importantly, how you can use this information to work with your neurology, not against it. Here's the craziest part about this whole thing. For millions of years, our primitive brain, specifically that part called the amygdala, that's the size of an almond, but has the power of a dictator, developed an absolutely perfect system to keep us alive in a world full of predators and immediate dangers. Every time there was a real, physical, tangible threat, the brain instantly activated survival mode, fight or flight response. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your attention focuses like a laser, and all your body's energy channels toward one thing: surviving the next 30 seconds. But here comes the biggest plot twist that neuroscientists have discovered in the last 2 decades, and it's completely revolutionizing in how we understand human behavior. Your primitive brain, that ancestral amygdala, cannot distinguish between a hungry lion running toward you and a complex task at work, an important project, or that presentation you need to prepare. Wait, because what's coming will literally blow your mind. To your amygdala, both are exactly identical mortal threats. It doesn't understand nuances, doesn't understand deadlines, doesn't understand long-term consequences. It only understands. This is complicated. This is uncertain. This could go wrong. Imminent danger. And you know what your brain does when it genuinely thinks you're going to die? It completely paralyzes you so you won't make fatal mistakes that could cost your life. Psychologists and neuroscientists at Stanford, collaborating with researchers from Harvard and MIT, did something absolutely revolutionary that changed everything we believed about procrastination. They took 200 chronic procrastinators and 200 highly productive people and put them in functional MRI machines while they thought about their pending tasks. The result? Completely opposite to what everyone expected. The procrastinators' brains weren't inactive, lazy, or shut down. It was literally a neurological fireworks show, completely hyperactive, with activity levels that far exceeded the productive people's brains. Turns out when you procrastinate, when you feel that mental resistance, when your mind rebels against doing something important, your brain is working in overtime. It's consuming energy as if you were running a mental marathon. There are literally dozens of neural networks activating simultaneously. The prefrontal cortex, which is basically your brain's CEO, is fighting an epic, brutal, constant war against your limbic system, which is basically like having a terrified 3-year-old screaming, "Danger. Don't do that. Something terrible will happen." And this is where everything changes completely. Procrastination isn't absence of motivation. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's excess of disorganized neural activity. It's like having 47 windows open on your mental computer, all running heavy programs simultaneously, making the entire system slow down to almost paralysis. But here's the most fascinating part. Your brain is spending more energy avoiding the task than it would spend actually doing it. But here's the most mind-blowing part of this whole thing, and it's something that's going to change your perspective forever. Dopamine, that chemical we all think gives us pleasure and satisfaction, the one we associate with rewards and achievements, actually works completely, totally, absolutely backwards from what everyone thinks. A massive Harvard study that followed over 10,000 people for 5 years revealed something that shook the foundations of modern neuroscience. Dopamine doesn't activate when you get the reward, when you finish the project, when you achieve the goal. It activates massively in anticipation of the reward. Your brain releases 3 to 5 times more dopamine imagining that you're going to do the task, planning how you're going to do it, visualizing how good you'll feel when you finish it, than when you're actually doing it or when you complete it. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see the perfect evolutionary trap we fall into? Your brain is literally drugging itself, intoxicating itself with the idea of doing things, not with actually doing them. It's like being completely in love with the idea of being fit without ever going to the gym, or falling in love with the idea of learning a language without ever studying. And here comes the most dangerous secret that even psychologists are surprised when they discover it in their own patients. Every time you postpone a task, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later," your primitive brain interprets this as, "I successfully dodged the danger. I survived another day," and releases a small but powerful dose of dopamine as a reward for saving your life. You're literally training your brain to associate avoidance with pleasure and survival. Wait, stop for a second, because what I'm about to tell you now is going to change your perspective about yourself forever. Have you noticed that when you really, genuinely have to deliver something, when the deadline is literally hanging over you like a sword of Damocles, you suddenly transform into a super productive, ultra-focused, incredibly efficient machine? It's not coincidence. It's not luck. It's not that you finally decided to work. It's pure neuroscience in the wild. When the deadline is really on top of you, when there's no possible escape, your brain finally makes the calculation it should have made from the beginning. It accepts that the threat of doing the task is infinitely smaller than the real, concrete, immediate threat of not delivering it and facing the consequences. In that magical moment, your sympathetic nervous system activates like a rocket, and your brain releases an absolutely powerful neurological cocktail. Norepinephrine for laser focus, cortisol for urgency, dopamine for motivation, and serotonin to keep your mood stable, all at the same time. It's literally like activating turbo mode, beast mode, the life or death mode of your brain. Neuroscientists have coined a specific term for this phenomenon. They call it eustress, which is good stress, productive stress, stress that temporarily turns you into a superpowered version of yourself. Your survival brain finally says, okay, now it genuinely is life or death. Now it's worth spending all this energy. Let's do this as if our survival depended on it. And here's the craziest part. In those moments of extreme pressure, many people produce their best work, their most creative ideas, their most innovative solutions. Why? Because they're finally accessing 100% of their brain capacity. But here's the fundamental problem. It's something that 95% of people will never understand, because nobody has explained it to them this way. Our brain, this incredible organ that allowed us to conquer the planet, evolved for millions of years to deal exclusively with immediate, concrete, physical, and tangible threats. Lion running towards you equals clear, immediate, specific danger. With obvious solutions, run, climb, fight. Deadline in 3 weeks equals total, absolute, complete brain confusion. To your primitive brain, something that's going to happen in 3 weeks literally doesn't exist in reality. It can't process it, can't categorize it, can't assign it an appropriate threat level. It's like asking a caveman to worry about climate change or their retirement. Their brain simply doesn't have the mental hardware to process threats that are so abstract, distant, and complex. MIT researchers, in a study that lasted 8 years and changed everything we knew about time perception, discovered something absolutely revolutionary. Our brain has two completely different temporal processing systems, operating independently and often in direct conflict. The hot system, the emotional, primitive, ancestral system that can only see and process the immediate present, the next few minutes or hours. This system is incredibly powerful, dominates your attention, your emotions, your impulses. And the cold system, the rational, logical, evolutionarily more recent system that can plan the future, make long-term calculations, understand distant consequences. The system is weaker, more fragile, gets tired faster. When you procrastinate, the hot system is completely dominating, hijacking all mental resources, screaming no threat now, no reason to act now. And this is where everything becomes incredibly interesting, where science becomes superpower. Because the world's brightest neuroscientists have discovered exactly, step by step, how to hack this ancestral system. And it's not about having more willpower, more discipline, more motivation. It's about strategically tricking your primitive brain. The most powerful, most effective, most revolutionary trick is called micro-threat activation, but not like they've explained it to you before in those basic productivity books. Instead of dividing the task into smaller parts, which is what everyone tells you, you divide the time into psychological micro-threats. You tell your brain just 5 minutes. I'm only going to work on this for 5 minutes. Your amygdala, your primitive brain, does the calculation and says, okay, I can definitely survive 5 minutes. That's not a real threat. But here's what's absolutely genius. What turns this into pure neurological magic? Once you start, once you take the first step, your prefrontal cortex, your brain CEO, takes control of the situation and something called neurological momentum kicks in. Your brain starts releasing dopamine for real progress. Not imaginary. Your reward system activates. Your sense of competence and control strengthens. Suddenly you want to continue, not because you're forcing yourself, but because it feels good. It feels natural. It's like tricking your brain by telling it you're just going to take a few steps around the block. But you end up running 3 miles because once you started, your body and mind entered flow state. The world's most successful psychologists, those who work with CEOs, Olympic athletes, world-class artists, use a secret technique that goes completely against intuition and against everything we've been taught about productivity and discipline. Instead of fighting procrastination, resisting it, criticizing themselves for it, they completely embrace it and strategically redirect it. This is called procrastination aikido in high-performance circles. When you feel that familiar mental resistance, that inner voice saying, I don't want to do this now, instead of saying I shouldn't procrastinate, I'm lazy, I have no discipline, you say something completely different. My brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do for millions of years. It's trying to protect me, and that's beautiful. This simple phrase immediately deactivates the neurological circuit of self-criticism, a toxic internal dialogue that only worsens the paralysis and adds shame and guilt to the original problem. And here comes the most revolutionary part of all. Neuroscientists have discovered that the most creative, most innovative, most successful people in fields requiring original thinking are often strategic, conscious, intentional procrastinators. Steve Jobs intentionally procrastinated before big presentations because he knew his brain needed time to process ideas subconsciously. Leonardo da Vinci was famous for procrastinating on his masterpieces because he understood that time pressure activated his maximum creativity. Adam Grant, the world's most influential organizational psychologist, has demonstrated that moderate procrastinators are more creative than both those who act immediately and those who procrastinate chronically. The key, the secret, the game changer is understanding that your brain isn't broken, isn't defective, doesn't need to be fixed. It's functioning exactly, perfectly, as it should function to survive in a world that no longer exists. But there's something even deeper happening here. Something that's going to change not only how you handle tasks, but how you see yourself as a human being. Procrastination, when you understand it correctly, is actually a form of adaptive intelligence. Your brain is constantly making incredibly sophisticated calculations about energy resources, success probabilities, relative task importance, and timing optimization. When you procrastinate, it's often because your subconscious has detected that it's not the optimal time for that specific task. Oxford researchers discovered that people who strategically procrastinate often make better long-term decisions because they allow more information to arrive before acting, and because they avoid premature commitment that can lead to suboptimal results. Remember that feeling of "I'm not ready yet"? Your brain might be right. It might be waiting for you to have more information, more clarity, more resources, or simply the right mental state to do your best work. Artists have known this for centuries. Famous writers talk about writer's block not as a problem, but as a signal that their subconscious is working in the background, processing, reorganizing, preparing for a creative breakthrough. And here's what's going to change your life. When you stop fighting your procrastination and start listening to what it's telling you. When you start working with your neurology instead of against it, you don't just become more productive, you become wiser. So here's the complete truth, the perspective that's going to change everything for you. The next time you find yourself procrastinating, feeling that familiar resistance, your mind rebelling against a task, remember exactly this. You're not lazy, you're not undisciplined, you don't have a character problem, you're an incredibly sophisticated survivor. Your brain is using a system of 300,000 years of successful evolution to protect you from what it perceives as mortal danger. It's a system that kept all your ancestors alive long enough to reproduce and pass their genes to you. You're the final product of an unbroken line of survivors. And that survival system keeps functioning within you, trying to keep you safe every second of every day. The fundamental difference between people who struggle with procrastination their entire lives and those who learn to use it as a high-performance tool isn't that some procrastinate and others don't. It's that the latter understand their neurology at a deep level and work intelligently with their brain, not desperately against it. They understand that mental resistance is valuable information, not an enemy to be destroyed. They understand that time pressure can be a powerful ally, not just a source of stress. They understand that their primitive brain and modern brain can work as a team, not just in conflict. And when you fully integrate this perspective, when you truly understand that your procrastination is survival, not sabotage, everything changes. Your relationship with yourself changes. Your level of self-compassion increases. Your effectiveness multiplies. Because you finally stop fighting an internal war and start conducting a neurological orchestra. See you in the next video, where we'll keep untying those mental knots, exploring more fascinating secrets of your mind, and make your brain say, "Oh, why didn't anyone explain it like this before?"